Hey, y'all. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Josh Says Mean Things. I'm going to be saying hey in the comments too. Um, yeah, I hope y'all are having a good Tuesday night so far. It's weird. It's getting a little darker now, a little sooner, right before the time change. Um, hey, Kendra, what's up? What's up, Steven? How's everybody? Good to see y'all. Kendra, I liked your submission. We're going to have some fun with that. Steven, I feel like I'd seen your photo before, but it's all good. We'll talk about it. You know me, right to my heart, get some Milky Way photos out there. Um, it's going to be, it's kind of, we have all over the place photos, honestly. We have portraits, we have landscapes, we have abstract. We have a whole bunch of everything, and I actually took the time on a couple of these photos. We are actually, we did a little editing. We did a little editing. What's up, Jenna? How you doing? Our newest Patreon. What's up, Jenna? Yeah, we kind of have we have a wide assortment of photos. So no matter what you like, um, no matter what kind of photo you like, I think we have one for you. I think we have landscapes. We have everything today. We have portraits. We have astro. We got some abstract. We got all kind of good things. Danielle, you made it. You figured out the link. Danielle, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here. We're gonna have fun today. Yeah, if you have questions, just go ahead and leave them in the comments. I try to make sure that I can see those. So yeah, Danielle, I was really happy with the photos. Danielle and I just did a photo shoot a couple weeks ago, and I thought I was gonna go one way on some of the edits, and I gave myself a little break in between shooting and editing, and some of the initial edits, and it turned out that I went a completely different way. I actually did some black and white edits, which I don't do a whole lot of, but I think in this case they worked. So yeah, we have a lot of fun. I love that we're all kind of a community here. I love that everybody's kind of saying hey, and I know I'm fancy in my shirt. Yeah, what's up? It's a Zulux. I have to wear blue. It's kind of a thing. So, what was I saying? Oh, but I don't do black and white very often. But it turned out I think they made them look like they could have been from like an old horror film or something. We got to shoot this really cool place called Jennifer's Gardens. It's an Airbnb now. It used to be an event venue, but it's just this really cool. I don't know. They built it over like 20 years and all this cool bricks and rocks and all kind of stuff. So, yeah, I love them too. I love the way they came out. But I thought I was going to go with like a very orange set on one. And it turned out that I went very blue with it. And that was kind of a fun edit. So sometimes I think when you're editing a photo, it's best to kind of give yourself some breathing room. If it's not speaking to you right away, I don't know. Sometimes it's best just to give yourself a little breathing time before you edit those final edits. And I think you might come back and see it differently. I'll let everybody else. Hey, Mark, what's up, man? Look at you using haze on your photos. Awesome. We're waiting for everybody to join in. I'll tell you a funny story actually. Talking about giving myself time, and maybe the most expensive shooting mistake. It wasn't a mistake, but a very expensive lesson to be learned. So I was joking. I say, it's not that I'm better than others at photography. I'm not. I'm certainly not. I've just made more mistakes than others, and sometimes those mistakes are very expensive. So let me tell you a quick story about one of my more expensive mistakes. It was a couple years ago, right when I was getting into doing a lot of underwater photography, and we had set up a big like underwater shoot. I had a florist, I had a prop person, we had assistants, we had like 4 or 5 models. I think my cost to get everything set up and rent and everything, well over $1,000, well over 1,000. And this was just me. There's no client. There wasn't anybody like paying for it. It was just out of my pocket because I wanted to do something weird, right? So well over 1,000 for the rentals for underwater stuff and florists and flowers and hair and makeup, all that stuff. I hated the photos. I imported them. I had a vision of what I wanted the photos to be. In my head, I was like, I'm gonna build this stuff. I have the vision. I had my bad sketches. I had everything that I thought was ready, and I failed. I failed bad. I failed real bad. I couldn't look at the photos for like 6 months. I had to apologize to all the models. I was like, listen, I was like, I just can't. I was so disappointed. My expectations were here. My skill level was down here. And that discrepancy, I literally couldn't look at the photos for 6 months. I gave him a couple like right away, and I was so disappointed. I couldn't look at them. But the lesson I learned and the upshot to all of this was, instead of trying to hold the photos that I did take to my vision, I had to learn to appreciate them for what they were. I'll let that sink in for a second, because I think we all get frustrated with that. I think we all get frustrated with the vision we have in our head, and then we go out and we get something that doesn't live up to that unrealistic standard. And then we feel like we failed. And we feel like we didn't deliver on expectations. Hey, Ronnie. But I think the takeaway from that is to learn to love yourself. No, I mean, that's part of it. But I think you didn't fail because you went out and shot. And just going out and shooting and just going out and creating something is better than all the days that you never went out and created anything. So even if it's not 100% what you saw, learn to be okay with what you did get, what you did capture. And then not only what you captured, but then what relationships did you build? What network did you build? What connection did you make by attempting something that you can go back and say, hey, listen, we did this. You did awesome. I didn't do as great. I loved your work ethic. Let's do something together again. And then what path that might take you down. So don't get so caught up on if your photos don't live up to your expectations. They often don't. Very rarely do they for me. But go out and create. And then submit it to Josh Says Mean Things, and I'll make fun of you for your photos. No, that's not true. I'll be nice. But it just as a thought, I've spent a lot of money on shoots that nobody saw photos from outside the people that were in them. So that's just my little 2 cents. While I waited for everybody to get on. Yeah. Just a learning experience. Yeah, Jen and Steven, I think y'all right. It's just a learning experience. Especially if nobody's paying you. No harm, no foul, right? There was no client. You were the client. So no harm, no foul. It's all good. All right. We waited for 3 minutes. Let's go. Let's push this thing live. Let's take a look at what we got today. Look at that fancy overlay. All the blues today. All the blues. All right. So this is our first image. I think this is from Miguel. I actually forgot who submitted this one. I'm sorry. I should have gone back and looked. I think when we're starting out, not when we're starting out, but like our intermediate level, we don't know where to crop. I think with buildings, it can be very difficult to know where to crop. Like with portraits, if I'm shooting a headshot, I know to get the head and not crop like there, but not crop like here, right? Or not crop there. I think it's harder with buildings to have that innate sense of where to crop. Right, we all watch so many movies. We see how portraits get cropped all the time in movies and photos and all that. With buildings, it's harder. For me, the really impactful part of this photo is like the center 10%. Just a little bit of that red brick, just a little bit of that bell tower, maybe a little bit of that, I think it's maybe a pine tree or magnolia tree, I'm not sure, and just the bell tower. Okay? All that other stuff doesn't help. Do you get to say mean things? You can defend. How about in the comments we say nice things? Let me do the mean things. Y'all can do the nice things. You can defend the photos and tell me where I'm wrong. You can say mean things about me. You can say, Josh, you're an idiot. You don't know anything. I can't believe you have the nerve to get on a camera and say something critical of these photos. These hardworking people. Look at them. They're going out and shooting just like you said. They're submitting. And how dare you? How dare you say anything wrong about them? So you can say that, but don't say anything mean about the photos. You can give constructive feedback, but make fun of me. That's always more fun. But I think this photo is a good example, right? The tones are good, right? We have that orange and blue contrast. But I think like that center, like 20% is where the action is. That orange, the white, the green, the blue, right there in the center. All that other stuff, just let it go away. Just let it go away. There's right. We don't need to see the handicap signs. We don't need to see the T-post. We really don't need to see the sidewalk. I think if we had taken maybe like 10 steps forward, got on the other side of those T-posts, and just shot just show me less, right? By showing me less, you're telling me more. You're letting my brain work a little bit more. If you show me everything, not as I don't know, not as interesting, right? You want to suggest things to people, not like hit them over the head with it. All right. So love the colors, love the tonality, but just, take a couple steps forward and we'll go from there. All right, let's see if all my things work now. Are we going to go next? We're going to go, oh, there we go. This is from Mark. The title of this was, when he sent me the photo, I saw the title first. It was called like Floral Sexuality. I was like, what are we getting on this photo? And then I saw the photo. I was like, oh, okay. He means in the strictest sense. So let me say what I really like about this photo first. I really love that bright blue corner in the upper left. And I love the yellow. And I love those contrasts. Okay, so good color contrast. I like that a lot. I think the color overall is kind of my jam, right? The color overall is yellows and blues and whites, a little bit of green, but yellows, blues, and whites. Look at what I'm wearing, right? Yellows, blues, and whites. So, I think the color tonality and the color contrast, I really like that a lot. The problem I have, it's not really a problem, but flower photos. What do you do with them? How do you make them yours? Okay, so I think that way with floral, with macro, with landscape, how do you make the photos identifiable as something you took? How do you imbue your personality with them so that if somebody were to see it that might know you, be like, man, I think Josh took that photo, or I think Steven took that photo. And so in what way can you imbue your personality? So past just getting it in focus, well composed, what can you add to it to make it that last step, that last thing where I joke about this all the time, but think about stand-up comedians, right? Chris Rock, when he tells a joke, or Kevin Hart or Jerry Seinfeld, when they're telling a joke about their life, it could only come from them, right? Chris Rock can't tell a Jerry Seinfeld life story joke. He might imitate him, but it's never from him. So think about that as yourself, right? What stories are you telling that could only come from you? And how can you use the visual language of photography and art to tell the story that only you could tell? So I think this one's nice, good close up, sharp, all those nice things. It kind of meets all that realm of good, right? Well composed, good color contrast, right? That's all good. But then how do you take that next step? How do you take that next step and make it yours? Or something that people are like, man, how did he do that? I need to look at this more. I see this photo and I kind of just like, yeah, it's nice. And I don't really know what to say more than what can we do to take it to the next step. Okay. But as far as like baseline traits, pretty good, right? If it's 2:15 at the end of a bar, this photo's going home with somebody, right? 7 p.m., maybe you get a drink bought, maybe. We'll see. So this is where I would say, like, maybe some off-camera lighting as a way to maybe add direction, to add color, to add something, or going even crazier macro and showing like going like 1,000% in or 500% in with a macro lens and getting that really just the texture of the flower and letting the color just be abstract. I think that's a way you could do it, but work on getting your style into it. And it's a hard thing. I'll be honest. It took me 11 years before I really felt like I had my style completely dialed down. And that was shooting full time 11 years before I really was like, I know what my style is and I can do it. So it takes time. Trust me, it takes time. And I'm a slow learner. So, anyway, that was flower sexuality photo. All right. Oh, this one's so close. I really like the vibe of this photo. It's Cuba. It's travel. We know who took this, right? But it's so close. It's so close. Okay. So photos like this, right? This bicycle meets car, right? They're kind of looking at them. I love all those things. I love that there's just a little bit of shadow on one side, highlights on the other. Colors, tonality, old car, bicycles. We have a rule of odds. Remember, rule of odds: 1, 3s, 5s. Right? We have 3 subjects. Right? Car, 2 bicyclists. Right? Rule of odds: 3 subjects. Good. Here's what's close though. Here's where it just misses. That corner of the building, see where that corner comes together? We kind of crop somebody right at their hairline. And then we have all this negative space at the bottom, which means we could have tilted it up just a little bit and got rid of some of that negative space at the bottom and caught just that triangle of the buildings coming together. And that's why it misses, because we don't have our triangle now. Again, rule of odds, if we want to complement three subjects, we need to have triangles in our frame. And so we could have a three-sided polygon where that point comes together, but because we shaved the top of that point, we miss having that three-sided polygon. Does that make sense? So we need to have that triangle. The other thing, because we're pointed down a little bit, we're getting some keystoning. And so our lines aren't straight. And I know that's a nitpick, but in a photo like this, nothing can distract. Everything has to be spot on. And our lines, especially as you get out to the corners, they kind of come in a little bit. So we need to, if we had tilted up, we would have fixed that. And then in post, we could really make sure they're straight. But just cropping at that little bit of the top, it's so tough. In the moment, right? It's tough. I do this all the time. Just in the moment. Or you think you get it right, and you have to do adjustments in post, and then you lose those pixels. So, love the color, love the mood. But anything with like a building in it where the building needs to be straight, we really need to make sure that our building is straight. But I want to go to this place and shoot photos too. I want to go travel and hang out. I just want to leave the house. Yeah. All right. So here we have, there's going to be a two-parter. All right. This is going to be a two-parter. So this comes to us from Brian Nixon. What's up, B? I hope you're out there. I haven't seen you in the comments yet. And this is, they did a trip to, I think this is the Overlook Hotel in Colorado. I believe that's what it is. So here's what's going right for this photo. The clouds, great clouds. We have a bird trying to escape. Okay, that's good. I like those two things. But I don't like the bottom third of the photo. The Stanley, thank you, the Stanley Hotel. Is it the Overlook in the movie? Am I going crazy here? I can't remember. The Stanley, that's right. I think this photo would have been better if you would have jumped up where that balustrade is, and then shot over the hedges. I think it would be better. I could be wrong, but it feels like it would be better. Just that lower 20%, I don't know what it adds. I don't think it adds anything to the photo. I think if you'd have jumped up and got around those bushes and seen more of the structure, I think that would have added to it. Overlooking the movie. Okay, see, I had it right. I sometimes have a problem separating real life from fiction. Okay, Ronnie? Real life and fiction is hard for me. It's all in this brain, and it all happens at the same time. Also, every shoot that I've ever done happened yesterday, and every shoot I'm going to do is going to happen tomorrow. So sometimes I have a lot of anxiety if I have a lot of shoots lined up because in my brain it's all tomorrow, even though it may be a week or a month or a year away. Oddly enough, I can also tell you that like my camera settings for every shot I've ever, like almost every shoot I've ever done. Like I can tell you what lens and what body and what settings and what flash modifiers I was using. I don't know. I kind of have a little bit of Rain Man to me, I guess. 244 Max 6. Okay. So yeah, I think this one, I think getting up above, because I think it would give you something that the average person may not see. The average person may not jump onto the railing to get a photo. Okay, there's some more examples of this down the line. Oh, and Steven, your Astro photo is right behind this. That's funny. Okay, so Steven has an Astro photo coming up that was shot in like within the same neighborhood as this. That's fun. But I love the bird, and that's really cool. But I don't know that having the bird makes it better than what could have been from up above higher. So let's go to the next photo that Brian also took. And I think this one captures the mood and the feeling of being at the Stanley, the Overlook, of going a little crazy. I think it captures it better. Now, I happen to know that he shot this with a lens baby because it's my lens. He borrowed this lens to shoot this. But this feels like unsettled. This feels a little crazy. There's a little bit in focus and all the edges are just kind of twirling and swirling about. And I think this is a great way to use something like the lens baby to add uncertainty, to add a little bit of chaos to the photo, right? All it is a building against the clouds. But by using selective focus in something like a tilt shift lens, which the lens babies are a type of tilt shift lens. It's adding that surrealness. What's the word for surreal? What's the verb there? I don't know. My mother's an English teacher. She probably hates that I can't think that. But I think it adds just to that, like, not real and kind of spooky. And I think the black and white conversion works well here. It makes your brain work more, right? That's one of the reasons that people love black and white, is that it makes your brain work more. You have to fill in the colors with your head. So you tend to stare at it for a little bit longer, and then all you have to do is play with the whites and black tonality. So I think I think this is a really good use case for that. Yeah. So I think this really sells kind of what that hotel is, right? Right. It's known for being in The Shining. And so having that craziness about it, I think is the right choice here. And I don't mind that the center line isn't straight. That in this shot, it's not supposed to be. So it doesn't bother me that it isn't, right? If this was for like Architectural Magazine, yeah, you could say like, hey, the center line on the building isn't straight. Whatever. This is supposed to be a crazy lens baby, blurry, wild shot, and it works. And then the clouds just have that mood, right? Those angry, just like clouds. So well done, Brian. I like this one better. Yeah. See, I know. And that would have been my one critique, right? And I know people make fun of me, but like now you just need like somebody with a big knife hanging on the balcony, right? Or a typewriter or something. Yeah, I think a human element in here could go a long way to it, right? You don't always have that opportunity, but yeah, it would also be cool if there was like, a person with blood squirting out of their eyes on the balcony. Yes, I agree. I know. Me always looking to add something dead into my photos. Yeah. All right. This comes to us from our photo club member, Patty Robertson. So, Patty had sent me this photo, and she wanted my critique. And I said, I will give you my critique only if you'll let me use it in my Josh Says Mean Things. So before I get too into it, who can tell me what makes this portrait not work as well as it could? I'll leave it to you in the comments. So there's something here that makes a portrait not work as well as it should. So what she was saying, she's like, hey, this guy's actually like a cowboy on a working ranch. He has this authenticity about him. Yeah, dead fox. See, y'all are getting it. Y'all are getting it. We need dead things in our photos. And she's like, man, I try to play with it, try to give it that old timey feel, because you kind of had that mystique about him. So what, she was like, man, it just didn't feel right. Like, she's like, I liked it, but it just didn't feel 100%. And honestly, those are the best type of photos to submit, are the ones that you feel like you did something well with them, but like, I'm missing something. What did I miss? So what I told her was, the first problem that I saw is, color's a little off. So I think the sepia is actually the wrong choice here, because it makes our authentic cowboy feel more like a tourist trap Photoshop. Like you go to those, like a tourist spot, and they have like old timey photos, and they dress you up and you take a picture. My wife and I actually did that on our anniversary. It's hanging in our hallway. No sparkle in the eye, color's a little off. I think y'all are kind of getting at it. But here's the big part. In a portrait, we want our faces to be the brightest point. Where does your eye go when this photo comes up? Your eye goes to those antler horns in the lower left, and they don't go to the face. Okay, the eye goes the wrong direction, right? Because your eye goes to the brightest thing in the frame, and the brightest thing in this frame is on the left, not on the right where his face is, right? But for the toning and everything, I think the sepia makes it feel a little too cartoony for somebody who is authentic, for somebody who is an actual rancher. So she used the softbox 7200, and what I told her was, if you feather that softbox away from, it's going to feel weird. Like we usually want to put it square on at the person, but in this case, we'd want to feather it away from the person's face, or flag it in such a way that the light doesn't hit the background, but just hits our person's face. The hard part is we don't have a lot of distance to work with between the subject and our background, right? There's only maybe a foot from where his face is and where the background is. So we want to feather that to where it's hitting his face but nothing else, okay? Or we can use Lightroom and we can use negative gradients and radial brushes to redirect our vision to his face, to his hands, and away from the antlers and that side of the frame. Okay. So I asked her if she would send me the raw file. So I did a re-edit, same photo, but just a re-edit of toning and color grading, and adding some clarity and texture in places. So let's take a look at what that would be. Okay. Now I'm going to flip back and forth between these just a couple times, but look where your eye goes immediately now. There actually is a sparkle in his eye. You can see a little bit of that softbox in the eye. So it does have that sparkle. But what I did, I just ran these negative gradients from each side. And then on his face, I did a radial plus so that it came here. I brushed in clarity and texture in his beard. And I brushed in clarity and texture in his clothes. And so we took the focus from those antlers to his face and then down to his hands, because that's where I want you to go. I also fixed the geometry a little bit to fix the verticality. It was a little keystoned. And then I cropped in a little tighter. It's just a little bit tighter, but not a lot, but a little bit. So from there to there, because he's a modern person, so he should get modern post-production. Like he exists right now. And so I think this one, and this may feel a little too commercial. I shoot a lot of commercial. So I'll flip back and forth a couple times, right? I shoot a lot of commercial work. So sometimes my edits don't feel as artistic as maybe they could. But I feel like this could be an image in a magazine, right? I think this could be, a cover story photo. So what she did was right. It's just some of it is learning how to bring that out in post. Which is why we teach Lightroom Live, and that'll be coming in 2 more weeks. So if you have Lightroom questions, send in your Lightroom questions, because I don't know what I'm going to be talking about in 2 weeks when we do our next Lightroom Live. It may be workflow. I haven't decided yet. So if you have suggestions, let me know, and we'll do a Lightroom Live. It is a little straighter, Jenna. Yeah, it's a little straighter. If you look on the left side, it was keystoned. So because she was pointing down a little bit, we get keystoning. And so I straightened it up. So I used the transform tool in Lightroom, and I used the guided. What's up, Blue Genie? Blue Jean? Blue Jean? I'm not sure. Oh, it's Stacy. What's up, Stacy? So yeah, that's what I would fix. She did everything right. I didn't have to really change the exposure. I didn't really have to change a lot of things. If anybody wants this preset that I created for this, message me somehow and I'll email it to you. I don't know how to distribute files like that. But I will send you this preset. So as a thank you for watching, I will send you what I did here so that you can use it for your own stuff. There's a lot of gradient and a lot of radials, so you can just delete those if it doesn't work. But I did a lot of color channel adjustments. So yeah, send me a message and I'll send you an email with this Lightroom preset. And then Lightroom, you just go to import preset and you can load it in. You can use it for whatever you want to do. Awesome. Cool. See, bonus. If you watch, you get bonus. All right. So this one comes from one of our OG supporters, Miss Kendra. What's up, Kendra? How you doing? Now, I need to warn y'all. She was shooting macro of this person's eyes for an art project for somebody else. Okay. But what the question was, like, how does the skin look? And I have to say the skin looks really good. It's a nice, even, broad lighting. And so people that have darker complexions, African Americans, other nationalities that have not my pigmentation, which mine looks, I'm ghost pigmentation. But those with darker pigmentation, it can be a little bit harder to light, right? It's not as easy to light. Ooh, a little buffering. Interesting. So I think Kendra did a really good job here in I think she did a really good job though in making the light source very broad, so that it's very even. And Kendra, now is this window light or is this something bigger, or is this strip box or soft box or something? If you can hear me, let me know, because I just totally had some weird buffering issues. So yeah, but I think the luminosity of the skin is very nice. It can be a definite learning curve of learning how to light non-Caucasians, because we're so used to we can get so used to shooting. Well, for me, I got used to shooting people who look like me, and it was definitely a learning curve to shoot people who didn't look like me. And I think broad light sources are a good way to. Oh, really? I'm sorry, Stephen. Yeah, it's saying that I'm getting some. I got some buffering there for a second, but it looks like it's back to normal. So it's my neighborhood's been having crazy internet problems. My kid was taking a reading test today, and the internet dropped out like in our entire neighborhood. AT&T cut off. So not so great. Anyway, but I think Kendra, I think your mission was right. I think you executed that broad luminosity. I would say maybe just a touch brighter, maybe just like a third of a stop more exposure. But I think overall the broad outside and shade, yeah, that's great. Just open shade, bright open shade is a great way to get that soft, even light. If I remember correctly, you were saying that you were using just the eyes so that a painter could paint eyes. Am I remembering correctly? Is that what this was from? Yeah, still weird. Okay. Anyway, I think you did well here. So she didn't really want me to judge the overall composition because she knew that was off. But honestly, it's not terrible. I would maybe go to an 8x10 crop instead of a 3x2, bring it in a little bit, and it's kind of a cool portrait. So, and I love like her necklace and her, I think the gold in her earrings and the black and the necklace are kind of a cool contrast. Same shape but different colors. I think that's cool. So yeah, I think this would be a good portrait. Just bring it in from the right a little bit and just bring it in, or just do an 8x10 crop. I think it's good as a portrait. That'd be the only thing that I would change, but I think it's just that nice, even, very, very luminous lighting. So good job, Kendra. All right, this one from Danielle. Now I'm gonna give y'all a little bit. I think this is the second time I've mentioned this person. But there was a very famous architectural photographer in the 60s and 70s. His name was Ezra Stoller. Let me type that. Ezra Stoller. And Mr. Stoller shot the Guggenheim Museum in New York, among many, many other projects. But before the Guggenheim opened, he was one of the people who went in and photographed it. And he has a shot almost identical to this as one of the photos that people know of the Guggenheim. And so if you want some homework, go look up his work. It's amazing. He was shooting in the 60s and 70s predominantly. Probably one of the top 5 architectural photographers ever. So really good, Danielle. I love the concentric circles. And then with a stained glass, even more concentric circles. And then there's just enough light. There's just enough light to have direction, but not so much that it overpowers the scene. So it's like the highlights are well controlled, and there's that shadow, right? So the shadows aren't all the way black, and the highlights aren't all the way blown. So it's a good exposure. But then that circle, right? It could be like an eye looking at you. It's kind of cool because you're looking up into an atrium, but if you kind of stare at it off center, it looks like it's coming the other way. Like it looks like it's protruding out towards you. It's fun. I like this one. I think it's great. I don't need a dead person in this one. If that gives you, I think this one's great as it is. It's a really good architectural photo. Literally, like go look up Ezra Stoller. Like one of his most well-known photos looks exactly like this from the Guggenheim. So if you like architectural photography at all, go study his work. I used to teach a class of precision. I had to study him for it. Yeah, really good stuff. If you like other architectural photographers, there's also I'm missing some names. Don't worry about it. I'll throw them out somewhere. Maybe I'll do a Patreon post about my favorite architectural photographers. Because I do think it's interesting how you can translate the mood of a building into a photo, right? A 3-dimensional space into a 2-dimensional print. So good job, Danielle, for your first photo. This is Danielle's first photo in Mean Things, and look at that. She's already knocking it out of the park. Good job, Danielle. I don't know that I would change anything about this photo. I think it's great. think it's great. All right, this one's from Stacy. She's here as Blue Genie or something like that. Really cool long exposure. I think that the hard part with photos like this is that water tends to become bright white and overexposed. And so really well controlled long exposure, because too often they get blown out. And I really like this one. My main things to say about this one, though, is I think it would work better as a vertical crop than a horizontal crop. So I think if we took just that middle third of the photo, so just to catch a little bit of the green and a little bit of those stripes going up and down, I think that's actually where the interest is. All the stuff on the left and the right on either side don't add to it. So let's just take it away and make it a vertical crop. But I also love how the splash, a lot of times you don't see that splash get shown up in a long exposure like that. I thought that was really cool. So well done. Well done, Stacy. This may be one of my favorite photos you've taken. But yeah, I think a vertical crop would make this stronger, because I think from like the left of that tree coming down the cliff to just to the right of the splash, I think that's the real interesting part to the photo. What was your exposure time on this? I'm just curious. 10 seconds? 30 seconds? All right, well, let us know in the comments, Stacey, how long that exposure was, because I'm kind of curious. Yeah, I think it's probably around 10. That would have been my guess. All right, this one comes from Mr. Mark. He is a good lad, and his lovely bride, Miss Jessica, with Hammer and Flow Yoga. Mark's been hanging out with me a little bit too long. Look at that. He's already using some atmospheric haze, got some off-camera lighting. I'm clearly a bad influence on him. But I really like the use of atmosphere, especially right. Spooky season is coming up, so get that atmospheric haze, get those cans going. You don't have to have electricity to run a smoke machine. You just need somebody to run around with a can and spray it. And I think what I really like is the orange and the blue contrast. Right, that's always a fun contrast. So in this case, we have the kind of the orange of her skin with the blue in her pants. A couple things though. Some mean things. That red tag on her, yoga mat, kind of distracting. I'd clone that out. It's not spray paint. It's actually atmospheric. It's atmospheric haze. Yeah, it's called Atmosphere. I don't have a link, but it's basically like aerosol olive oil in a can that you can spray to make fog. Wherever you go. It just comes in cans. It's great. I go through way too many of them. I buy them by the case. Precision has them if you're here in Austin area. You can also order them from like Adorama or B&H or whatever. But yeah, it's called Atmospheric Aerosol, I think. It's a gray can, black top. But Camera Source have them. Just search for haze in a can. But it's great because you don't have to, it's non-toxic. I've sprayed my face. It's fine. And so instead of having to do a smoke bomb where there's ignition, it's just like Aquanet basically, but not sticky. I don't know how else to describe it other than that, but it's just got a quality about it that's really nice. And so they usually go for like $12 to $14 a can. And it'll put out quite a bit of haze. Yeah. So I tend to buy them from Precision because shipping on them is kind of expensive. Because it's an aerosol, so they can't do like airplane, so it has to be ground. So they're a little bit more expensive per can at Precision, but it's cheaper overall for me to buy them there because shipping eats me up otherwise. So, Mark, I think this photo would also do better from more of a cinematic crop. So if we think like a 16:9 aspect ratio instead of a 3:2, right? I think from like the top of the fence to like, I don't know, midway down the grass, I think that's kind of the interest area. the information above, like the trees don't really add anything, and the bottom of the grass, where the grass gets darker, doesn't really add anything to it. So having that more horizontal crop, more cinematic crop, I think would work well here. I don't think the rest adds to it. I do kind of like the toning. It's a little bit, the shadows are boosted. So it's got, it's not as contrasty. And the haze will do that, right? Shooting through that haze will absolutely decrease the contrast. And that's actually in Lightroom where the dehaze tool came in, it was for people that would shoot in fog and landscape. It was a way to kind of get rid of fog. But what it does is that localized contrast. But I think it works well here. I don't think that this isn't how I would process it, but I think it works for this. It kind of has that softer vibe while still maintaining that orange-blue contrast. So that's my main thing for that. Crop it differently. All right, this comes to us from one of our good friends, Miss Jessica, who is one of our newer Patreons as well. Look at that. Wedding client photos. I shot her wedding and I shot Mark's wedding. So two wedding clients back to back. So obviously this is Jessica in the photo, right? So we actually have quite a few models as our Patreon. So I like to give them a chance to submit photos as well. I think it's good for them. So if you are a model Patreon, I appreciate the hell out of you. We love y'all. But it's also a good way to kind of get feedback on what other photographers are doing. Ooh. And so in this case, she shoots a lot of pinup. I totally knocked off my headphones. She shoots a lot of pinup, and I think there's a lot going here, right? Jessica's obviously a beautiful redhead. She's got the Louboutin shoes. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but right, the red sole, red pumps, right, jean shorts, right. The outfit works, right. The red bandana. We got a classic truck on an old dirt road. So I think there's a lot going for it. I like the angle of the truck. I like the pose. I like the outfit. So all of those things are going well. What I don't necessarily care for so much is like the skin kind of looks modeled. So in the shadows, I don't know if the shadows were just boosted a whole bunch, right? Where you just cranked up the shadow recovery. But the skin tends to feel modeled. And pinup shouldn't feel like that. Pinup should have very smooth skin. Right, because a lot of the pinups started as paintings, right? They started as illustrations. And so to kind of carry on that tradition, you kind of want that like overly smooth skin. Not like crazily, but enough. Whereas here, like her leg, it kind of looks a little, I don't know. It just looks a little mottled. It's obviously at a time of day, maybe like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon if we look at the sun angle. And we're creating some like really bright, like hot spots across her collarbone. And then like on her quad, it's actually blown out. Which normally like that stuff doesn't necessarily bother me, but in this case it does. I think that a more powerful strobe and a better angle of strobe where we could knock down that ambient more and then focus the light more on her. That's what I would do. Now, some of this, I don't know that I would shoot this time of day if I could help it. Now, that may just be when you had available, when the truck was available. I get it. But I think it would be better to have moved our subject to the other corner of the truck and put her back to the sun. And that way we don't have those cross highlights coming across really bad. Like look at her hand and her face. Look at like how bright it is and then like dark. So we have these like really extreme contrast between highlights and shadows. And it felt like the shadow recovery got a little bit too much. And so for me, I would have moved Jess to the other corner of the truck so that she's more in shadow. And then my off-camera lighting doesn't have to work as hard because then it doesn't matter if she has highlights on her shadow, like on her shoulders back here, it's fine. But that way we can balance out the shadows on their face a little bit more. That's what I would do. I think everything else is pretty good. I just think I would have shot them on the opposite corner of the headlight there. Now I think this setup at night would be amazing, right? Turn the headlights of the car on, and then you could play with like, dropping like a drag race. I think there's a lot to work with there. But yeah. Anyway, so Jessica, so she's also a musician. So Guy and Jessica Forsyth, they show up in some of my Patreon stuff. They're also one of our podcast interviews. Oh, yeah. So for those you don't know, we also have a podcast where I interview artists, and I will put that in the comments. But Guy and Jessica talk about being touring musicians in the time of the pandemic. And they were a great listen. Guy and Jess are amazing. They're really good friends of ours. So yeah, go check out their music. It's really good. So awesome. All right. This comes to us from Miss Jenna. Jenna is, I think, our newest Patreon. What's up, Jenna? And this was, I think, a self-portrait. Am I mistaken here? But I think her question to me was like, how, and it's awesome. Like, how do I get the colors right out of camera? So let's talk colors and camera a little bit. Something that I actually happen to know a little bit about, right? A little bit about color. So if a camera could be the happiest it could be, it would want to be neutral. It wants to shoot medium gray and not too much red, not too much green. Okay, that's where it wants to live, just right in the center. So anytime it sees green, it tries to add red, right? So if you're in auto white balance, if it sees green like all these ferns, it tries to add red. If it sees yellow, it tries to add blue so that it can be neutral, because that's what auto white balance's goal is to be neutral. It's not trying to be right. It's trying to be neutral. And that's kind of a clear distinction. It's not trying to be, it doesn't know what you want. It just sees a bunch of color and it freaks out and says, nope, too much. I need to be in the center. It's the same with exposure, right? You shoot snow, all that white, and it's like, no, that can't be right. We're going to bring it down to the center. And so often snow gets underexposed. A black tux on a groom. It says, no, we can't have that much dark data. We need to bump our exposure. So a lot of time black tuxes get overexposed. Okay, so just as we have that with exposure up and down, we have it with color left and right. Okay, so in this case, it saw the yellow and the green, and so it added, well, it subtracted those and added red and blue. So that's why your skin looks not like skin. Right. And so that's what you had to add back in to correct it. So here's her next photo where she corrected it. That looks a lot better. But that's why it happened. And I think the why is more important. And I really love the lines of the dress with the lines and the flowiness of the ferns. I think that's a really good contrast. I do wonder what this photo would look like as a horizontal crop, where we don't have the dress cropped off. We don't have as much negative space, but we still have some of those overhanging ferns kind of being in there. So I think a horizontal crop where the dress isn't cropped off and the bottom of the dress isn't cropped off, so that we can see all of that as it relates to the ferns. Because we only need maybe half amount of ferns as we have. That'd be my change there. And maybe you have frames like that. But so for white balance, what I try to tell people, right, pick whatever's the most dominant light source in your scene and pick that as your preset, right? So if you're shooting outside in full sun, pick the sun preset. Okay. If you're shooting in shade, pick the shade preset. If you're shooting in fluorescent lights, pick the fluorescent one. If you're shooting indoors, pick the tungsten one. Whichever one is the brightest in the scene, pick that one. And then work your way down. But you can only pick one. Cameras can only pick one white balance. They can't work in multiple white balance planes. So pick whichever one is the most dominant color in your photo. And I think that's going to work better for you than auto. And most of the times it's either I'm in sun, I'm in shade, I'm indoors. So it's really like 3 you have to pick from. And if you have to shoot inside fluorescent, I'm sorry. I apologize now. Fluorescent is the worst color on earth. It's like kind of green, kind of pink, kind of awful. So if you have to shoot in fluorescent settings, I'm sorry. And Jen, I'm glad you liked that podcast with them. I think it was great as well. They're very interesting people. Guys, very interesting. Jessica's very interesting. All right. This one comes to us from Kira. I'm going to take a sip of my tea. Hold on. So Kira shoots a lot of weddings with me. We just shot one a couple weeks ago. And she was shooting this wedding. She's like, man, I had this super cool couple. We had this great sky. I had one light with me. What do I do? She's like, what I did, I just tried to, they were on a different distance. So if we can see the bride and groom are like 6 feet closer to the camera than the couple. And so for me, there's 2 ways, and see if you can guess them. But there's 2 ways to make something really unique with this setup using only one light. So for me, of what she shot, the one thing I would change is I would run a negative gradient from the bottom up and darken the grass, because the grass is a little bright and kind of nuclear green at the bottom. and I would run a negative highlight gradient tool in Lightroom so that the grass is darker. So the foreground grass matches the background grass. That would be the first thing I would change. And then I would do the same thing with the sky, just the highlights and bring it down, and maybe do some luminance masking where it hits the subjects. So it's just darkening what's bright, not darkening, and not darken what's in the midtones and blacks. Okay. So any guesses on 2 ways you could make this interesting with just one light? I'll give you 10 seconds. Okay, that's long enough. So the first thing would be to pull the couple even closer to you and bring the light in way close to them. Darken the sky even more with our ambient, right? We can control the ambient with our camera settings. Darken the sky even more, maybe another half stop all the way down. Bring the light in closer and illuminate just the couple and let the bridal party go to silhouette. That could be cool, right? With a longer lens, you could have their heads in the clouds, dark face, like silhouette, 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 bright couple lit. That'd be cool. The second way to do this, put your camera on a tripod and shoot a composite. So run with your, again, you can take your light source and in close, take a shot, boom. So it'd be 3 shots, one on the group on the right, one on the bride and groom, one on the couple on the left, and then composite those together. And then you could do an even darker exposure for the sky. Because we can bring our light in closer, we can control the ambient even more. Okay. Now, on our Patreon, for those of you who are our Patreon members, I did a detailed breakdown of how I composited a 10 or 11 person composite. Okay. And the results were really cool. And I think you could have done the same thing here. Okay. So either with one light and a tripod, you could have done a composite, or just like the couple and let everybody else go to silhouette. Yeah. What do y'all think? Yes? No? Yeah? Interesting. All right. Thanks for the submission, Kira. All right, this one comes to us from Miss Rachel Hall. I really love this photo, and I struggled to think of what I wanted to say. This is one of her high school seniors, I believe, and it's such a pose of contemplation, and there's a lot of space for her to do her contemplating. And so I think a lot of that works really well. And so I think this photo is like 95% of the way there. I think like 95% of it's right. Here's what I would change. If it were me and I had infinite control in the world, I'm just like one more infinity stone away from having the whole gauntlet. I'm almost there. But what I would do, I would move her like 6 inches to the left. So there's a space, right? This is such a peaceful, contemplative photo with a lot of space around our subject. Her left shoulder comes across this line right in the doorway. And so just moving her into that space in between the doorway and the window frame, just that little bit. And then that way the background doesn't encroach into our subject. Can y'all see that? If we move that subject just a little bit over, and then that way we can have her just in that clean space and not kind of that shoulder and arm right through the doorway on the left shoulder. Honestly, that'd be the only thing I would change. I really love like the looking down. I love her hands. That's such a different pose than I see from most high school seniors. And so I really like this one. It was good. I think the color, the toning, the editing, I think it's all great. I just would have moved the person over just a little bit so that they fit right in that negative space between the window and the door. And I think that would have sealed the deal as really communicating that peace, that contemplation, that moment. Yeah. Good job, Rachel. All right, this comes from Michelle. What's up? Now, this was interesting because I just got done talking and looking at all the silhouettes, or thinking about silhouetting our bridal palette. And then we basically have a silhouette here. To me, the interesting part of this photo is the top left corner. So if we take our photo in quadrant, right quadrant, bottom quadrant, left quadrant, top quadrant, that one on the left with just the face, just the like old camper, where it's just white, just black, and like a board, just that, I think is the interesting part here. So from like the board in the center, to the edge, person, just white, window, top. And let everything else go black and white. So that's my main thing there. Crop in like 25%. Most of the time it's crop in more. Right? Robert Capa, founder of Magnum Photos, right? What'd he say? If your photos aren't good enough, it means you're not close enough. Same is true here. I think the interesting part is just the person silhouetted against the white. So that's what I would have done. All right, now we get to Steven and the Milky Way. What's up with the red light? Steven, you don't have to turn on your red light. Steven. No, we're not singing Roxanne. We're not going to do that. You don't want me singing on this. That'd go the wrong way. So a couple things here. One, I love the human element to show the scale of the Milky Way and that feel of like we're in the infinite, right? The Milky Way is this huge, vast thing that we happen to be a part of, and that if we do a lot of things right with our cameras, we'll get there and we can photograph it. And then to be able to light up with red a person, I think it's really cool. Yeah, you don't want me singing. My wife sings like an angel. We'll get her in here if there's singing that needs to be done. She's been a music teacher. She's been in opera. So, we'll get her to sing. You don't want me. I have the radio voice, right? Good morning, friends. Welcome to KUT Radio. Yeah, I can do that. You don't want me singing. Okay. But Stephen, I think there's a self-portrait as well. I think that's Stephen in the photo here. So a couple things for me. What would I change? One, I'd probably make the Milky Way a little punchier. I would a little more texture, a little more clarity, bring out the whites a little bit, and really pop out that Milky Way a little bit more. And then also, if we're going to light a subject, let's think more like portrait lighting. So instead of kind of on camera straight at the subject, coming more off to the side and giving some dimensionality and angle to our light. Red is tough at night. The Milky Way is already tungsten. So there's a hot tip for you. The Milky Way and the night sky are tungsten. So set your cameras to tungsten and it'll make your lighting choices a lot easier to come up with. But I would have liked to have seen the light kind of coming across so that you're looking at the light instead of the light coming from the same angle as the camera. That'd be my big critique. And just a little bit punchier in the Milky Way. I think that's somewhat there, but just maybe a little bit more. Yeah, but really cool. I like this photo. Why does it seem like there's a vertical stripe down the center of this photo? Do you see that? Does it look like there's like a vertical like crease in the middle of it? Maybe that's just on the resolution that I'm looking at this. I don't know. I just noticed that. But I love Milky Way photos that show scale. Because otherwise they're just pretty sunsets, right? So a Milky Way photo is just the night version of a sunset, and we all have sunset photos. And once you learn how to take a Milky Way photo, it becomes a question of now what? Again, what do you do with that Milky Way? And so what I like about this is that he's looking at the Milky Way, right? His eyes tell us where to look, which is look at the Milky Way. And so adding that human element, I think, helps that. Yeah, in the center with the clouds, right? There's a stripe or something. Am I crazy and the only one seeing that? I don't know. So once you learn how to shoot the night sky, it becomes a question of now what. And I think that's for a lot of, right? Once you can shoot a sunset, sunsets are great, but what do you do with them? Do you put somebody in it? Do you learn how to light the person? Like, what do you do with that sunset? Night sky is the same way. It's just a good background. So then what do you do with the foreground? I think this is a good, I'd say, intermediate level attempt at getting a person and showing. Now we have a foreground and a background. All right, now we're 2 out of 3, right? So that goes a long way to give us a sense of scale. So good job, Steven. Yeah, I want to see it when you get done with it with Sequator. I'm going to be playing with Sequator. I'm teaching a Star Trek class in a couple of weeks, so I'm going to play with it for that as well. I've been using Star Stacks, but I haven't been 100% happy with Star Stacks. So I'm looking for some I'm looking for some new software to help me out with Star Trails. So does Sequator do that? I don't know if Sequator does that. But I need something better than Star Stacks right now because it's just not giving me what I want. Because I'm demanding. It has to do this. No, I don't know. All right, this comes from Ronnie. What's up, Ronnie? How you doing? Thanks for sticking around. So we have our crystals here. Cool. I'm going to take a look at Sequator then. So I like that this is monochromatic, right? So we have black background, white foreground. The first thing that jumps out to me is I wish this foreground was brighter So I would have taken maybe a gradient tool and just with my whites made these crystals just like way brighter. Because then that'll increase our overall contrast, right? We're going to go from a higher tonality to a black background. So that range, right, that's more contrast, right? The range from bright white to black, that's our contrast range. And I'd like to see a little bit more of that. The foreground and all the crystals just seem a little bit dull. Like they need more oomph to them. So maybe a little more clarity, a little more whites, a little bit more exposure overall. And I think that would make it more, it would give the viewer more to look at. As it is, it feels a little muddled. I think the framing is good. I like the negative space in this. This type of photo would make like a great book cover because you could take that negative space then and write like Ronnie D's Guide to Macro Photography, right? That'd be a great image for that. And so there's a lot of value in images that have negative space. If you're looking to sell photos for stock, for instance, I've been contributing to Adobe Stock for a little while now, just for random photos of mine. But they love photos like this because then they can put text over them. And so negative space is a good thing. And I like that it's at an angle, right? So we have this triangle shape of crystals with, is it ice? Is it crystals? I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking at. But then we have black. So we have that contrast. But I would boost my highlights, boost my whites, darken my shadows, darken my blacks, maybe add some clarity and really get that popping. I want it to look like fire crystals or something. So yeah, that's what I would change. So thanks for submitting, Ronnie. Sub and ring the bell. Very good. We talk photos. Malden salt. Okay. Shot with a macro? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So basically on our channel, we do Josh Says Mean Things where we critique people's photos. And then we do Learn Lightroom Live where we figure out how to edit photos better inside Lightroom. And we can do deep dives over all the different tips and tricks that I have so painfully learned over the years in Lightroom. Awesome. Yeah, macro cool. All right, this is our last photo. Look at this. Who wants to drink a Coca-Cola now? Right? Who's ready for a Coke? I am. So this is from another Patty Mitchell. She's my VP at North Austin Photographic Society. We're putting together a print show of wildlife at West Pecan Coffee and Beer. Shout out to all the people I love. Look at that. Great place to get a caffeine or alcohol. This photo's... What I love about this photo, the polar bears are awesome, and it's snowing. And I think when we see a photo like this, we take it for granted for a couple reasons. One, polar bears aren't doing too well. But two, think about the shooting conditions to get this photo, right? Probably in somewhere north of Austin. It's snowing. It's cold. There's a lot going on to get the shot. How like getting it in focus through the snow. Snow will mess up your autofocus. Mess it up. But then also that optical has to go through all that snow. So you end up with a lot less contrast, right? Because we're having to shoot through physical objects. So we lose contrast as well. So I just think, and like the snow is like sweeping across their feet. Can you see that? Can you see that as far like the snow is sweeping across? But then they're just looking right at you, those like coal eyes. And I just think it's beautiful. The ocean's behind it. They're on, I don't know what they're on, but there's some rock, but it looks like maybe there's ocean behind it. And I think so many times, like this goes to that example again of like, well, what I talked at the beginning. Are you going to be okay with what you get, or did you hold yourself to some unreasonable standard of what you thought you were going to get? And I think this photo is beautiful. Like this could be a story. Like this could be in any publication about polar bears, right? And it tells the story, right? There's snow. It's cold. It's windy. It's inhospitable, and it says all those things without using any words. And so using that vocabulary of photography to be able to tell that in one frame, I think it's very, very good. Very good. I have 0 photos that look like this. 0. I don't like the cold. I live in South Texas for a reason. I don't do well in the cold. I know I have a big grizzly beard, but that's not what I like. I'd much rather be in the hot than in the cold. But I love this photo, and I think this is a good example of what wildlife photography can be by telling an entire story, all in one frame without having to say it. I think so many times with wildlife photos, it's just nice photos of animals. It's a bird on a stick. It's an animal sleeping at a zoo, right? Whereas this one is like, man, these bears are having a day. Like, you think you had a Monday? These guys are having a Monday, right? It's windy, it's snowing, it's awful. But I just want you to think about it. It's why I put this one last. I just kind of want you to think about, like, what links are you going to go to get the photos in your mind? What links are you going to go to create the imagery that only you can create? Okay. I shoot a certain type of look. I know what my look is, right? I don't shoot polar bears. It's not my thing. But I appreciate that somebody took the time, the effort, the energy, the expense to get this photo. And so I'm not saying you have to travel the world to get those photos. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, like, you have stories to tell them, right? So I'm not going to get too sentimental, but I wanted to end with this. I lost a very dear friend of mine about a year ago, and today was his birthday. And he and I actually created this show, right? Say Mean Things. And so I want to thank y'all for joining us today, because it's a great tribute to doing something and doing something stupid, right? Creating a YouTube show called Say Mean Things. But you never know where it's going to go, and you don't know how long you have on this earth to create those things you want to create. So go out and shoot some polar bears. Photograph, don't shoot them. Photograph those polar bears. Tell your stories. Tell the stories that only you can tell, and go to whatever lengths you have to tell them. Sometimes you spend a whole lot of money on an underwater shoot that didn't go your way, but you still tried something. And life is very precious. So this is kind of a in memoriam of my dear friend Andrew. Today would have been his 42nd birthday. So I'm a little sad today, but I thank y'all for sharing that with me. And I'm glad that we could create something in this world that it's kind of stupid and silly, and we have fun doing. So anyway, I'm going to end there, but thank y'all for joining us. This has been episode 12 of Josh Says Mean Things. Make sure you subscribe and like what we do. And if you have questions, y'all know how to get a hold of me. All right. Talk to y'all soon.